Hello, and welcome back to the use and abuse of Laura Endicott. This is chapter the 9th. I have betrayed thee. I had awakened with beads of chill perspiration decorating my forehead. I had to wipe my face twice over. I had dreamed that I had murdered Philip, and in cold enough blood. We had been living in some noxious garret, he and I impoverished, and for a moment my conscious self wondered if such a thing could actually befall us in reality. The only way it might occur was if he could not gain employ, and I had somehow been blacklisted amongst all the families of Britain. And the only manner such an outrageous thing could itself occur was if he and I had been charged and arraigned with some heinous crime, or series thereof, and yet not enough evidence was found to actually convict either of us. What then might qualify as the less than perfect, but still excusable crime? Then I calmed myself, realizing I had been taking the role of another, which, it is said, dreams might well manifest as so doing. Once again, just as I had chided myself for my vanity several days before, I was now being given some perspective from deep inside my own mind. The crimes already committed at Arlemont might well qualify, in fact, for just that kind of legal process. But just so, they could never be fully proved in any manner a court or a judge would find convincing. To this recent memory I was compelled to add a less recent one, that I myself might give in to my desires and ignore the law. Well, you scurrilously wretched girl, have you not done precisely that? That phrase, and another dozen variations on its theme, had been the small change of the masters at Hilliard's. Even I could not entirely avoid such verbal salvos, though, at least in my case, they never went any further than that. Sticks and stones, one should say, and it was so. But I recall vividly enough the faces of my chums when reproached in such a manner, for about half the time they would be facing the cane or such like instrument. I shivered for one more moment. I was by now wide awake, and my routine for curing such a state in the midst of night time had always been to retrieve a book and read until I once again dropped off. I had left my current volume down in the library, and so made to get up, threw a robe round me, lit a candle, and padded down the long corridor and equally long flight of spiral stairs, alighting nearest the entrance foyer, and then back down another gallery hall until I arrived at my favorite place, and that, for now, in the entire world. Do you know the feeling of being trespassed against? When something of your soul has been trodden upon, however lightly. I was reminded of Schiller's Ode, wherein of course the revolutionaries transgressed the sanctuary of Lycia, fire-inspired as they were. There the goddess is welcoming, for these are her acolytes, human beings of flesh and blood who have realized that they are capable of transcending not only their own customs, but also the history of custom itself. And that interpretation in turn called to mind Olivia's apparent love for Beethoven, one of the greatest of such revolutionaries. I had then started, even gasped a little, for it was her voice, which I heard emanating from behind the library door, set ajar as it was. For a moment I automatically began to listen, and then I realized that if I was going to eavesdrop, the very much impotent governess within me asked what on earth was the girl doing up at this hour, then I had best douse my candle flame. As it turned out, the conversation which was transpiring within the library was very much worth listening to, and so I did. And this is what I heard. You do realize, sweet sister of mine, that when the historian arrives she shall become unavailable to us, perhaps even unapproachable. The historian. Endicott's besotted fool, damn it all, Sarah! For God's sakes, think of it! The two of them, lovers, still young, ensconced in a place like this at your invitation. And so you yourself reject them? You do not wish them present? It's not that. How much does he know, sister? I ask that question each night before falling asleep. How much? How many persons have we between us done away with? 5 now. You know me, do you not? You know that my concern is for your fate alone. And nothing of yourself, beloved sister. You, at least, have the very best of excuses. I acted in desperation the once, and in betrayal the other. Nonsense. What is this talk of betrayal, other than this is precisely what I am concerned that Endicott will do to us, and to the both of us, and it will be her beau who has pressed her to do so? Well, at least you are not besmirching her integrity, and Endicott's sister, she is Laura, and for more. Call her what you please. Whatever she is, and is to us now, is about to be altered. She has lived here, yes, here, sister, in such a place as this, with those who also live here. The arrival of Rossiter, or whatever his name is, will be like the entire world arriving, the outside world, if you will. Do you truly imagine that he too will perjure himself in the manner of his bell? We know nothing of his beliefs or his character. The only thing we can presume is that he is not a noble, and thus has no chance of being noble. There I must strongly and stringently disagree with you, dearest sister. Was our father noble in his turn? His will enveloped my own. I have betrayed thee because of it. I shall never live this down. Ah, you do know, then, and thus you must know that I have cared not for my fate ere since. You are losing me, Sarah, darling girl, beautiful angel. What is this redress you seek for yourself? Our father was a villain through and through. His desires overcame his will. So you do not think them the same thing, then? Desire is but a species of general will, and one geared into base values. We have known this at least since Plato. Recall in the Phaedrus how he makes love itself kindred to madness. That is wise, yes it is, for I myself have been mad for 2 years and more. Yes, mad, Livy. How else could I have become so besotted, to use your too harsh language, and that with our own father? Does such a state speak to nobility already losing its mind to desire? That he should pursue me, and the more, that I should in turn pursue him. It is the fall, best friend, the fall over again, all over again. The fall of man occurred bereft of the noble, which is why it is a relic of a specific mythology. And is that not our very own? It must have occurred before nobility itself arose, did it not? It was the first act, the beginning of history. Very good. Yes, now you are speaking more sensibly. I applaud it, Sarah. Please do not think yourself a dimwit as next to myself. My studies have as their bent nothing by which I should disdain you. I do not become the wiser, that you become the dimmer. I appreciate that, dearest sister, but what you have taken thus far as resistance upon my part is yet the only way I know to love you, to make up for my betrayal of you. I have participated in the fall writ small, and thus I too should fall. It was father who held the apple. That you ate of it alone does not indict you. And we speak in mere legendary terms. Even if Arlemont stands apart, it is not itself a myth. But what else could it be? That such things as have just transpired within its sad domain could ever have occurred at all. And here now am I, girl ruler of all the land, the fairy princess whose hands are soaked in blood. I adorn myself with jewels to convince the world that I myself am such. I wear the frocks of frou-frou land and finesse my servants, and yes, to this point, even my own beloved sister. She herself is bewitching. She rides the night air upon a winged volume of the world's wisdom. She returns with only a crimson ribbon in her hair to tell of the blood she herself hath spilled. You are the girl raven, the one who can eat of the dead, and yet live on. Now there was finally a pause in which I could catch my bated breath. I had no idea, no clue that these two siblings not only could converse in such a manner as to put shame upon both the stage and Parliament alike, but that they were so familiar with one another. It was like I myself had cast roles for a two-person play. I had to pinch myself, and hard in a tender spot, to make certain I was indeed awake to the world. I am moved by this description, though it does make me ask if you had completed your poetry assignment for aforesaid personage. I have not, shame on me, but perhaps I have a germ now with which to grow out. Livy, this shall sound hollow to you at present moment, but I do love you. Sarah, I know you do. Who lay beside me in that accursed schoolroom after I'd nigh on been slain by our late governess? Who wept for me when I myself had no tears remaining? Who breathed for me when I was suffocating? Who held me when I was lost to the world and to love itself? You held me to yourself, Sarah, and did not let go for hours on end. And these are just a few of the reasons why I am reproaching you now. Rossiter will be the death of us. Therefore, I had already thought that I should seduce him, since I am apparently rather good at such matters. You are abusing yourself there. Father was not seduced. He acted upon his own druthers. If anyone was entrapped, it was you, sister, not he. This was something upon which I fully agreed, but Sarah's next series of responses shook me to the core. I have betrayed thee, keenest angel of the night and beyond, not because I killed him, but because I killed him for myself and not for you. You do understand that, do you not? I suppose I do. Well, all you are saying is that you were saving yourself. Of course, Sarah, it is not something you even have need of speaking about to me. It is a given. No, no, oh, my darling, my love, I killed him because he told me this would be the final time we would be together. Yes! In my fury, I snatched up one of the pistols and pointed the barrel into his eye. I pulled off, hurting my dainty fingers in the process. Then I stood there, shaken to my very soul with what I'd done. And why so? Why, in the name of both heaven and hell together, would I feel such a thing? And what did I feel, Livy, but remorse? I regretted the act, and sometimes I yet do. Now there was a much longer silence between the siblings. It hung upon the air, and I, from round the corner, hidden from view, could yet see the frozen atmosphere, its opaque cloud of vampiric vapor, unvented and menacing. At some length Olivia spoke, but her tones were so low that for a moment I strained to hear them at all. Sarah, my love for you runs precisely upon such rails. I already knew you loved him, and not as a daughter, but rather as a woman. You said as much in front of Laura. Perhaps you thought it but a whim, and the fates only know what she herself thinks of it, which is, once again, part of the very point I am trying to make for you. But I could tell, and simply due to the love you expressed to me in the schoolroom and elsewhere. As beautiful as this is, Livy, how does it absolve me of such a thing? What need do you have of absolution? To me, it is this very desire to turn to love, or perhaps it was the other way around, it matters not, that tells me you have become noble, that you are fully worthy of both the mantle upon which you are now seated and the crest which you now bear as your own. You loved as a woman the man you chose, and then when he betrayed you, you slew him. How can anything be more noble than that? I had to swallow down something or other at that juncture. Olivia's own sensibilities were farther down a disused path than even I had gathered. Perhaps it was me, after all, that I had neither the sixth sense to apprehend such a notion nor the organ by which to digest it. My family had been anything but aristocratic. I had been taught that desire needed limiting, and that my will was to be mostly enthralled to that of society's needs. That was what motherhood was, in a nutshell, and I had reckoned my way through that even before I met Philip. If it were to be a point of dissension between us, I was prepared to hold the line. This, though I had already expected that I was barren, for the sheer number of intimacies he and I had shared in that feral fortnight of torrid torsions had suggested this to me. There had been utterly no sign of pregnancy or even issue over these past 3 months. But this silent tangent had only come into my mind because of how Olivia had framed both will and desire. For her, there clearly was almost no difference between them, and indeed this had been the topic at the beginning of my eavesdropping. I myself was not noble, at least by their standards, and the best I could do was to serve their nobility. But my moment had not yet come, even though I had now made my decision. Their discussion was apparently set to continue. I understand, Livy, very well. I shall seat myself upon that mantle and bear on such a crest as Montfort can afford me. You have solved my puzzle. Now, how can I resolve your own? Now, girl, this is your moment. I rapped at the library door, gently pushing it open as I did so. My entrance was greeted with startled stares, and for a moment I saw the girl in the both of them, residual certainly, but bred into their spirits through both violence and custom. Apropos. Ha! There you are, sweet Sarah. Any governess worthy of the name would be fetching up her most wicked cane at this point. What in heaven's name are you two girls up to at this such an hour? You're both for it. Oh, yes. You shan't either sit for some time. To this sardonic soliloquy, Olivia stuck out her tongue and winked at her sister, who, for her part, had recovered her stately, if youthful features and looked a question over at me. The moment of childhood had passed, likely, at least in my presence, to never again return. This was their house, after all, and I myself was only spared censure, or yet dismissal, because of my relationship with the both of them. Laura, we have disturbed you, no doubt. My apologies, Sarah declared gently, though how in the world she could imagine that I, within my bedchamber and behind 2 doors at significant distance from the library, could have possibly heard their voices. How much have you heard, Laura? Olivia had not been fooled. Then, to my look of askance, she pointed to what I was yet holding in my left hand. If you'd wanted to preserve any such theatre, you should have relit your candle. It is true, of course it is, and yet though I utterly lack nobility, nay, do not even know what it is any more, of what it consists, and of how it manifests itself in a very much less than noble world, I do not lack courage. I think you both know that much about me. Of course you do not. Goodness, Laura, no, you are our friend, a friend in need. You are that much, and you are more than that, at least to me. Sarah was expostulatory in her attempt to reassure me, and yet I had overheard her begin the plan to murder the man I loved. I raised my brows to her even as I nodded my appreciation. Her face had flushed up beautifully when I had entered, and had colored yet more deeply when she realized that her sister had exposed my position in a manner that I should have been able to anticipate. Nothing seemed to get past that one, and given that, if she had set her mind to kill, no matter who the intended victim, how then would that person thence emerge alive? No, she does not lack courage per se, only the wit to act upon it. Olivia had assumed a stance which I knew to be almost predatory. Though I was taller by some 6 inches and heavier by some 30 pounds or more, I would stand no chance against her, even was she unarmed. This I knew through my observations of her exercises and by some of her actions. I had been about to be overtaken by Violette, for goodness sakes, before Sarah had run the lady's maid through her skull. That is not so, dearest sister, for here she is before us, admitting to overhearing our tiff. I fear, Laura, that I have transferred my neediness, my trepidations, from my father onto your much finer shoulders. I fear with the arrival of the one you truly love, and indeed must love, that your loyalty to myself and my sister will wane. Livy is correct, and my resistance, which perhaps you have as well heard, pending the tenure of your less than noble station, just forsaken for the light, was due to me not absolving myself of my fallen condition, and not because I couldn't find in myself an enduring reason to reject her on principle. I had gained that much, Sarah. I may lack the wit of Boadicea, but I am in full possession of that of Hypatia. Quite so, well said. Olivia had interjected once again. That is the single greatest reason why I am myself not too flustered at your ambuscade. Indeed, I could tell you now that I shall murder Rossiter before e'er he sets foot upon my family's land. And I could tell you yet how I was to do so, and yet you would be powerless to stop me. That is a case in point, is it not, sweetest sister? An exemplar of what it means to feel nobility in your veins, to know the humming of that blood. It would seem, pardon my plebeian sensibilities, that is at least also the mark of an overweening tyrant, if not a tyro himself. I was stiff enough in the face of Olivia's ostentatious manner not to immediately give in, and yet she was not the spoiled child, to whom no had never been said. Rather, quite the opposite. The negative had been declared to her all too often, and ported by evil vehicle, and this was thus the abreaction thereto. Her parents and their few minions had created a monster, and now that creature had made its monstrous form her own, indeed her very own. But she smiled away my resistance even so. Yet I should not make you feel anxious, dear Laura. You are a kindred spirit, in that you have suffered, have known misery and helplessness, as have my sister and I. What is absent is any ability to balance that misery, since, as you stated quite eloquently to me, it was an absence, and not a presence ongoing, that was the source of your travails. You yourself have my admiration, and, more importantly, my trust. It was perhaps unfair of me to judge you simply as a passive being, for you never had the opportunity to assert your will, and that cannot, in the face of it, be conflated with the lack of willingness itself. No opportunity, that is, until you washed up on our derelict shoreline. Your secrets are absolutely safe with me. Sarah, my God, Sarah, you have nothing to be ashamed of, nothing. Your father was an adult, a member of cabinet, for heaven's sakes, and thus a lawmaker, for and on behalf of the rest of us. He felt he could do as he pleased, and whether or not he actually loved you as a man loves a woman, however young or old, however beautiful or ugly, does not in the least absolve him of his crimes. You say he betrayed you, and yes, I agree, but what kind of betrayal, Sarah? The two of you look upon me now and see a woman hardly older than yourselves. But though I am not as courageous, nay, not even as intelligent, and certainly not as downright clever as the both of you are, I am yet more experienced. Why so? Because I know something of the world at large. I possess one of the finest degrees in that world, and am possessed of the love of one of its finest persons. Just so, a man who truly is a noble man. And so if you were to ask me if Philip will stand by you, the answer is yes. Yes, he shall. Because he e'er would stand by you, Sarah concluded. I was nigh on exhausted by this point, especially having slept only halfway through a night which was by now rapidly becoming dawn. Olivia gave her sister a questioning glance, and she continued, directing herself away from me. Livy, I know what it is to be in love. You are telling me that it is part of my authenticity to be able to love anyone, including my own sire. And on top of this, part of that same genuine nobility that I should kill any lover who betrays me, who gives me the sense that his love was itself inauthentic, at least in part. And forgive me, my beloved and transcendental sister, but you do not know what such a love is like. It is indeed my greatest fear, my most deep distress, that you may never know it. To this Olivia had to resist hanging her head. She had closed her eyes and then had to wipe something or other away from one of them. Seeing this, her sister flung herself over to her and embraced her tightly, but it took several moments for Olivia to relax her frame into Sarah's. In that interim, I recalled my deepest breaths to myself. Was Philip yet in danger? Should I immediately place in the Morning Post a warning of the most momentous proportions? Should I myself steal away from this place and seek to join him in Paris, never to return even to England's hearth and home? At some length the sisters gently pushed off from one another and then stood together, their pairing framed by the huge fireplace mantel within which lay the invisible mechanism that opened the first passageway door, itself in the shelving. I shall explain to him that if he ever acts against either of you, he shall promptly and with finality lose me, even though he should never lose my love. Then that is enough, Sarah stated firmly. Olivia was shaking her head. Is it? Think about it, beautiful angel. What more could there be? He would lose the love of his life. And so he would think, perhaps for some years. But he is young, and I presume handsome enough to have gained the desire, thence the love of a very beautiful young woman, though but a shadow once compared with you, my sister, my love, and with an academic pedigree that should land him a plum position in time. Do you think even for a moment, sweet Sarah, that such a man as this would not fall for another? Perhaps not as pretty, and very much not as intelligent nor compassionate, but even so. If we ourselves seek to live the length of human life, we must also take the long view, and in all things. The dead are now known to stay dead. That this new knowledge has yet to overtake the laboring classes, let alone the rustics of the empire and beyond, is no skin off its most factual nose. You are yourself, Sarah, more or less in the shoes of such a man who might well lose the love of his life, as it were. I know you can bear it up when I say this, sister. Father has been yours. But do you think yet for yourself, a true beauty and an aristocratic one, that father shall e'er be your only love? Sarah's brilliantly sparkling eyes were now damp. She shook herself, quite bodily, goading herself to rise to the role she now occupied. She set her prim little chin, flattened her perfect cheeks, and stiffened up her neck. That sculptor's idealization made living flesh. Everything about the Lady Miss Montford was stunning, but Sarah Montford was herself not quite ready to embody her successor's status. In time, however, she would be, and I now realized that when this did indeed occur, it would also be the final moment in which Philip and I could hope to stay on at Armand. I shall never marry. As long as you live, Livy, and thereafter as well as long as Armand stands extant, I shall never marry. And by the gods, if any would-be lover seeks my hand, either afore or post-coitus, excuse the term, shall you not vanquish them for me, beloved sister of jet and justice? Ha! That is amusing. Ay, that I could. But you are not the Queen of Spades, my darling. That is my lot, and I embrace it. You are rather the Queen of Diamonds, since you eschew both the heart and the mind. To this Sarah brightened up and chuckled, giving me some minor relief. Now that is a laugh, given what our solicitor has said of the estate and its finances. The only reason we should remain afloat is due to our shared and penurious behavior regarding selves. Olivia blinked at this, then coughed. Have you found it burdensome? No, I know, of course not, though it takes me a full hour to dress for Laura's evening concerts. Well worth it, though, my dear friend. She sent this over to me, though her body was turned fully to her sister's. I resisted being distracted by both her incredible presence, even clad most informally. For her part, Olivia was dressed in riding breeches and a vest alone. Her heavy boots were polished almost to a glow, and yet they still menaced. What can I do, then, Olivia, to prove beyond doubt's lingering shadow that the two of you have nothing to fear from us? Olivia's response was as shocking as was the utter lack of pause in her giving it. She had obviously thought the whole of it out before ever she had confronted her sister, and that was just like her, I recognized. Just like her, to have such a plan in her head, or several such plans, all of them equally devious, equally clever, and most saliently, equally effective. That you yourself should kill him. Oh, with our help, of course. I must have gasped aloud, for Olivia now gave me her patently disdainful look, but Sarah had joined me in such ululation. "Livy, my gods! Surely it is enough that you yourself effect such an outcome, and no one would in the least suspect you. You are asking Laura to condemn herself, as she would be the first person the police would seek out. A crime of passion, they'd call it." "That is the entire point, dear sister. Laura must feel as if her very life hangs in the balance upon this question. In a word, she must be made to feel what we already feel." That was the point, and Olivia, genius of shadows as she was, had figured it, as well as reckoned a way in which to place me within such a condition, which is better called a state of being. Yet I had to answer to her, if not to her logic. "If I tell Philip I shall kill him if he betrays us, that would surely drive him from me, and thus increase the chance of just such a betrayal. And yet to have any force with him, I should have to tell him of it, and if I did so, that would not kill him, but rather his love for me, for no one can truly love in the midst of fear." Now the sisters looked at one another for a few moments. Olivia had raised her brows in consideration and nodded to me in admiration. She bustled up her lips in apparent acceptance, then sighed aloud. "Impeccable, Miss Laura. Well, well. What then is left to us? Murder you both? Even I would find that distasteful at the least." "My thanks for that," I replied dryly. But now Sarah interjected. "Livy, you are innocent in my eyes, and those are the only eyes that matter. I would not yet be your sister if I felt that you had murdered anyone. No, you have merely killed. Those that fell before you were themselves not worthy of being murdered, and I weep for you on that account, for you could have taken no pleasure in their killing." That too is wise, though perhaps not quite correct, dear sister. It was true that with the governess I was so enraged that I could feel nothing but fury, though it served me well. As for our mother, it was a matter of a few silent minutes, in which I felt nothing at all. But with the maid, no, there was some pleasure in it. "Martha, you mean?" I offered. Olivia nodded slightly. "Yes, there I had time. She was completely in my power. Between her own agitation and desperation to leave the premises, her position at the top of the main staircase, and the fact that she by herself was far weaker than I, and so I took my time with her." "To make her feel her own evil," Sarah added. Olivia smiled at her. "Forgive me, darling girl, but perhaps Laura might wish to know just what I did there, taking my time." I do not think it—" I sought to interrupt any such thing. "What? In good taste? Perhaps it is not, but even so it is apt, quite apt, simply due to the case being that you, Laura, need still be convinced of our common bond, our common cause. What you have stated regarding the state and status of love, and so eloquently, is true, though I have no personal experience thereof, and so, I repeat my earlier question, what then are we left with?" I do feel that I would wish Philip dead if he betrayed me in betraying the two of you." "Aye, and that is a beginning. But wishing is not doing. Did I wish to destroy the very being of the governess who, with blood cold and manner colder, thrashed and beat the very spirit from my being? I did wish so, but I also did so. Did I wish to vanquish my own mother, because it was she who not only hired the governess, but as well ordered her own maid to imprison me and torture me in so doing? I did wish so, and then I did so. Did I wish to dismember that weasel of a maid, who aided her peer in my torture and imprisonment when I was but still a child? Yes, I did wish so, and then I did so, God damn it, and with relish." Now I felt that chill perspiration again. Olivia was ramping herself up. Her very frame seemed to enlarge itself, her muscles becoming tauter, and she rose up upon her toes. Before I could even think of how to try to mollify her, she spoke again. And this is how I did so. When she appeared before me at the head of the stair, quite by happenstance, I took off one of her kneecaps with my boot. She fell to one side, and as she did so I pulled up on one of the arms, ripping it from its shoulder socket and twisting it right round, so that its ligatures were parted at the elbow. I tired of her screams, and so I slammed my other boot straight into her mouth, breaking a number of teeth and forcing her tongue back down her throat. I then lifted her back up and tore half of one of her ears straight off the side of her head, before twisting her neck round and throwing her overboard, as it were. The subsequent fall broke said neck, but she was now dead. I was not done with her remains. Shall I then continue? Olivia was cool as she spoke, her tones even, if intense. I was anything but. Fortunately, Sarah's own discomfort distracted her sister from my own, for I was shivering in the warm, firelit library, and yet was also prescient that I would have to balance this tirade somehow, even if only in my own conscience, if I were to feel comfortable once again in my favorite place. Then that very thought seemed to have somehow reached Olivia, and her features underwent an abrupt alteration. Shame on me for communicating such grimoires in this hallowed space. I apologize to you both. I am ashamed for my lack of perspicacity there, too. Livy, ugh, yes. No, you had every right to kill her, and thus every right to decide upon the means of so doing that I was not there. Fighting tooth and nail by your side when they dragged you down to the cellar, cuffing and slapping you remains a nail in my coffin, sister. It shall e'er remain. My dismay is rooted in your suffering, and not what you suffered upon your tormentors, not in the slightest, beloved sister. Olivia smiled over at her sister and nodded. She turned then to me and said, That is nobility, Miss Laura. Can you by now reckon it? In that Sarah mourns her lack of bond with you at times when it mattered most. Yes, I do comprehend that aspect of it, Olivia, and that she mourns her lack of courage, turned to cowardice by her ongoing desire for your father. Yes, I am sound enough in mind and weak enough in spirit to recognize common humanity when I see it. Well done, then, Miss Laura, and so, there's the rub, as it were. If you murder Philip due to his direct betrayal of what has transpired in this household, including my part in it, I shall neither wince nor blink, but I myself cannot commit such an act, for no matter how my heart might feel, it is ultimately my conscience which directs my character, not my heart. And it tells me to live on and onward, free of moral burdens, no matter how ignoble and common they or their historical pedigree may be. For that is the world, dear sisters Montfort, and unlike yourselves, I have to live in it. Another pregnant pause, wherein I held my fading breath. As much was my first piano concert an endurance test, so this nocturnal and now dawning encounter had eclipsed it, and by far. For music was love spoken into the cosmos, and in a language itself cosmic, and what had been said and heard this night was almost unrecognizable in its tongue, and yet it was still born of and born on love, and that in turn only recalled to mind Olivia's point regarding Plato. Very well, then that is our answer and thus our plan. The only issue which remains has to do with the pesky problem of not being able to know ahead of time when he might betray us, and thus yourself, dear Laura, and hence my impetus to hunt him down in transit. No, I understand that, Olivia, I do. I feel abysmal about this whole condition, Laura. It is more than sympathy I feel for you, knowing Livy as I do. I am surprised she has not already journeyed all the way to Paris and acted there. No one would be the wiser in any official capacity, for who could expect a girl to accomplish such a thing, and at such a distance from her home? Sarah was trying to provide a semblance of balance. Should I suggest not giving your sister yet further inspiration, Sarah? Now Olivia laughed aloud, which was exceedingly rare for her. That is a good sign, is it not, sister, that her wit has not left her in spite of what she has endured with the two of us? At any rate, I had thought of making just such a journey, but I checked myself to the sudden influx of domestics, any of whom would have noted my extended absence. There was surely also the matter of not knowing whether Mr. Rossiter would in fact betray us at all. You could not have made such a fatal judgment aforehand? Sarah was not quite sure of herself upon that point, and I did not doubt why she was not. That is the entire point. We cannot be sure, and of any moment, and so the only way to be so sure is to finish the source of uncertainty before any such opportunity arises. Olivia had answered her sister with some finality in her voice. What if I told you that in my correspondence with him, I have not only revealed all I know, but also bid him consult the Paris police about it and communicate their deliberations to Scotland Yard? Of course, I had done nothing of the sort, and had revealed only so much to in fact test Philip's loyalty, firstly to myself, and thence to the sisters. Ah, the unlit candle again. You cannot have done so, dear thing, because you yourself are still present, rather than in a prison cell for willing accessory. In addition, you have no viable and verifiable evidence. Even this conversation is itself meaningless to a court. She said these things. Oh, did I now? She did these things. Prove it, I say. You say you appreciate my native wit, and yet you sully it with this idleness. But I do have one weakness, Miss Flora, and that is my appreciation of you. All's well in your eyes, I shall kill him if need be, but you shall have to provide me the moment for your intimacy with him. Nay, yet your very love for him is now to me mere leverage for such intelligence. I bit my lip, but made myself respond. I understand that, Olivia. I will not let him betray us. Indeed, given your humours, I should say that he shall do so only over my own corpse, and I know he would never kill me. Finally, it seemed that I had relieved the both of them. Olivia was nodding her head again, in the manner I had come to learn was the most complimentary that she could be to another person, whomever they may be. That is an end of it, then. For the time being, that is an end of it. But do not dare drop your vigilance, woman, for if I detect a hint of collusion, a mere hair's breadth of betrayal, then I shall kill you both.